oh, it's an AI CMO. And all it did was find Reddit posts for you to comment in. Most people conflate marketing with social media and ads. Like, you don't understand. Modern digital marketing is 20 things. 500 stars in a couple of days. Should I be sharing this? Should I be giving this away for free? And then I'll realize that the trajectory of AI is that eventually it will do all the things that you're saying that it can't do.
Welcome to Marketing Speedrun, a podcast for founders, growth leaders, and CMOs scaling and marketing in emerging tech and AI. I'm Paulina, your host and AI-obsessed marketer, and today I have Corey Haines as my guest. Corey has been over a decade in SaaS marketing. He also runs Swipe Files, a newsletter for marketers and growth leaders with over 30K subscribers. He has published a GitHub repo, which at this time got over 40K stars. Corey has consulted over 100 startups. And today we're breaking down what is AI marketing, what do most people get wrong, what are the blockers, and how do you get started? Let's get into it. Hi, and welcome back. Thanks, Corey, for joining us today. Would love to give you a few minutes to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, so you probably maybe know me from a couple things. I have a B2B SaaS marketing agency called Conversion Factory. I also have a newsletter for SaaS marketing and the latest on AI marketing called Swipe Files. And I've also built a couple of SaaS products myself, been bootstrapping for a couple of years now. I've been in SaaS marketing my whole career, the last 10 years now. And about 3 years ago, I did a coding bootcamp, which is a little bit of a generous term because it was me and a bunch of other strangers staying at some random guy's house for 2 weeks and him just like teaching us how to code. And that was right when AI coding was starting to become a thing. So that's when, like, literally at the bootcamp, we were like, hey, there's this new tool that has ChatGPT in the text editor. It's called Cursor. We should all try it out. We started like vibe coding essentially. And then in January of this year, 2026, Anthropic came out with Skills. And so it was one of those moments for me where it was like everything came together, you know, between all the content I've been producing for years, my experience in SaaS marketing, then becoming, you know, technical, quote unquote, and learning how to code, and then being like, I know what this is. Like, I've been using Claude Code. I've been using Cursor. I was like a Cursor power user for a long time. So I'd already been using Cursor rules, which I feel like was like a big precursor, no pun intended, to Skills. So yeah, then Skills took off. And now ever since then, I've been just jamming on AI marketing, doing a lot of AI training recently. So yeah, that's me.
I've always known you as a marketer first, but you ended up in a coding bootcamp. How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, like marketing for me, I feel like a means to an end doesn't really do it justice. But since I was 19, I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to start businesses even. And so I just didn't know what that would look like and how to do that exactly. But I knew that, you know, marketing was the thing I was most interested in. It was like the core skill I could bring to the table. And if you want to start a business, you need to know how to get customers, right? So it's like a pretty essential thing. And then I fell in love with this world of SaaS and tech and software. And so I knew that I wanted to do something in there. And I kept having kind of a lot of false starts with like technical co-founders, or I thought maybe I'll raise some money and then I'll hire a team overseas, or maybe I'll use some of the no-code tools. And then that kind of fizzled out with like Bubble and Webflow and kind of that era.
Yeah.
And so I just got tired of like relying on someone else to do the building or having to use second grade tools to be able to do things. So I was like, I'm just going to bite the bullet. I'm going to learn how to code myself. That way I can just get it done and not have to worry about anyone else. And so I had bought a couple of courses, and, I did some Udemy courses. I did some like random ones online that I bought from like people that were well known on Twitter. One of them was this guy, Ryan Culp, and he had this course on Ruby on Rails. And I'd always heard that like Rails was literally built as like the one man dev framework. Like you don't need like a whole giant team. Shopify was built on it. Basecamp was built on it. Like two businesses that I like hugely respected. And so I was like, maybe I'll do this Ruby on Rails thing. And then I bought it. And then like a year passed and I still didn't take it. And then one day Ryan tweeted and he was like, hey, if you've ever bought one of my courses, but you haven't had the time or energy or space to be able to actually do it, come to my house, lock yourself away for 2 weeks, take my courses, and then I will also like personally be there to help you through it, answer questions. We can do like workshops together, get you unstuck. And I was like, Yeah, I was like, that's what I need. And so that's exactly what happened. Like within 2 weeks, I was coding. I shipped my first app. It was a really, really cool experience that I actually kind of vlogged the whole thing and did little daily recaps to be able to, be able to like memorialize it in a way. But yeah, I think I learned just enough to be dangerous and like learn how to do things the hard way just in time to immediately switch to doing things the easy way with AI. But like I understood everything that was happening under the hood, and I could go in and make tweaks, and I could tell it like my vocabulary was a lot bigger and like how to prompt AI and how to understand how to fix things.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And also setting up the guardrails for AI because it can go rogue. Like as a marketer, I never cared about, the terminal commands, cat, ls, and all of these sort of
Hmm.
things. And sometimes I just want things to work the easy way, but I understand that now I sort of have to learn it. And so when you release those skills, this was like a huge shortcut for, okay, I know that this is a battle tested framework, a lot of battle tested frameworks based on the amount of content that you've already shipped, the newsletter and things like that. So for me, it was also interesting because you see marketing and AI from different POVs as a SaaS founder, as an agency owner, as a marketing newsletter publisher, and now a GitHub marketer superstar, I guess. I think it's one of the top rated marketing related GitHub repos. So it would be great to have a bit of a backstory of how, this spark came up with publishing this repo and also how you approach building the skills. Because in my experience, skills is just this, shiny object right now. There's a ton of lead magnets on LinkedIn, Twitter, and so on.
Hmm.
And you get these skill files and they're just, simple prompts, like they don't do anything. And I know that you package the skills really well because of that technical knowledge, right? And really have this battle tested framework. So where did the idea come from and how you approached it? And I think that you leverage all of your content bank over the years to create this, but curious to hear it from you.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, the skills is funny because I didn't really create it thinking that anybody else would be using it per se. It clicked for me immediately that I have all these SOPs in my agency that if I can create skills, now I can get the rest of my teams using Claude Code all on the same page to use the same skills and do things the same way. Like this is the conversion factory, tried and true process. I also knew, okay, I have a bunch of newsletter editions. I have a few ebooks. I'm also constantly using that as like source material and references for client work and for my own ideas. So if I can just package those, like literally a lot of times with AI, I was having a lot of trouble creating like custom GPTs and Claude projects. And like, I'm trying to use it for myself. So like I have one and it was called 140 marketing ideas, SaaS marketing ideas. And I'm like, okay, every time I launch a new thing, I want to dog food my own products, but the AI would never be able to go through all 140, and it would like break it up into chunks of like 20, and then you do that 7 times, but then it can't like store all that in its memory, and so then it's going back and it's overriding old things, and it was driving me crazy. And so I was really focused on like, how do I use Claude Code for this, especially because it was just such a superior tool, especially at that time, that I needed to find a way to take everything I was trying to do in normal AI tools and do it in an agentic tool, and a skill seemed like the right protocol to actually make that happen. So I took the ebooks, I took course material, and I tried to just take everything that I had already created and turn it into some kind of repo that I could use and then I could share with my team. And I think that's one of the big unlocks, and just especially for people trying to understand like what is the value of a skill. Yes, it's just a bunch of text. It is, kind of these prompts strung together. But it's a lot more than that, because it really becomes like the source of truth and the playbook, like the way that you do things for yourself or for your company. It's very scalable, very accessible, easy to update with things like GitHub. GitHub is a hub, a store, a repository of things that have Git versioning control, which is awesome because then you can actually see the changes that are being made. You have a whole paper trail and backups on backups on backups of everything that you've ever created, so you can always revert. So all that to say, I was like, okay, it was literally a Friday afternoon, and I was like, let me start to take some of my ebooks, some of my newsletters, some of my agency SOPs, and I'll just use the Anthropic skill creator skill, which is very meta, and just have Claude Code see what it can do, and then I can test it, and now I can start to like dog food it. And so I had to do that. I put it in a GitHub repo, and then I open sourced it because I figured, let me share this, and then I'd love to see like what other people are doing, and then they can, they can add their own. And if I open source, then maybe other people would open source, and then like I can have a better idea of how people are using this stuff. And then it kind of just took off. It became its own thing because I don't think that anyone else was doing what I was doing. But then I started getting all sorts of requests. And then as I was then using my own skills, then I was making improvements. I was coming up with new skills, coming up with new ideas. And it just worked really, really, really well. It solved all the problems I was hoping that it would. And it did things the right way that I wanted them to. And so, yeah, I didn't really have like a strategy going into it. There was a thought when I started to see it take off and it got like, 500 stars in a couple of days or whatever it was, that I was like, should I be sharing this? Like, should I be giving this away for free? Should I be open sourcing this? Like then, like the open source world's kind of weird because then anyone else can just copy it and then publish it themselves as their own thing. So there's a lot of like, not like fraud, but like kind of like theft. Essentially, like it's misleading when someone's like,
legal theft.
Oh, look at my thing, but they just made a fork of someone else's thing. It's not really their thing. So that thought did occur to me, but then I figured like, you know what? Like the benefit is probably going to outweigh the risk, and someone's probably going to do this, so it might as well be me. And I think it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, and I think that the risk of getting some shady GitHub repo with some shady skills and getting malware onto your computer is real. And a lot of people don't know that. And with the boom of skills, I feel like people would install whatever just to try it out. The education step was missing because it was so easy to get it. So I feel like because you did it and put it all in one place, it provided this kind of security net and a way to get started quickly and test things out quickly and see how you can scale your efforts in specific areas of marketing without risking it.
No, it's true. I still think a lot of people don't even know what a skill is, how it works, what the risks are. Another part of the story then is then like a week later, Vercel, one of the guys at Vercel's name was Andrew Q, I think is his last name, and it was QU. And he's a really, really cool guy, ex-founder, entrepreneur, and he created this thing called the skills directory, skills.sh. And so he started curating all the skills, made a whole npm package installation manager for skills, and then also had a bunch of like security scanners for the skills. So I always tell people, I'm like, look, before you go and install something, like definitely go look it up on at least like the skills.sh marketplace, or ask Claude to, and then look at the security rating before you install it. Cause there's definitely some, what do we call it? Like prompt cybersecurity risks, right? Of like prompt injection. Right. That's what it's called. There's some prompt injection risks in there, but also the skills.sh marketplace then helped get the marketing skills a whole bunch of visibility because everyone was just creating skills for the first time. They started a trend, and it was like this virtuous cycle where the more people that saw and used the skills would lead to more and more people seeing and using the skills because it was staying high on the leaderboard.
Yeah, I think you would know best, having published so many skills, which ones are the ones that are used most, or maybe the ones that you get feedback for the most, because that would signal to me, this is the first thing that people are trying to get rid of and automate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think some of the more popular ones, at least in the marketing skills repo, are the SEO audit. I think that one seems very approachable too. It's not necessarily about like which one is most useful, but my theory on that is that it seems very easy and people want to know like, it's an SEO audit. Like maybe I should just run it and then see what Claude says. I also think that the SEO community for marketing has traditionally been the more technical marketing community. And so there were probably some of the more like early adopters of Claude Code and these more like technical marketing workflows. So the SEO audit has been one. What was the other one? Well, kind of by nature, the product marketing skill has also been one of the more popular ones because that one is referenced by all the other skills because that defines like your ICP and your product differentiators, audience, brand voice, things like that. And so because sometimes people will cherry pick and they'll only install the SEO audit skill. And then it'll tell them, okay, well, in order for me to do this, it would be helpful if we need to also download the product marketing skills. So people do that. Most people, what I advise is like, look, it's free. Just download all of them. You might as well just download the whole thing or use the plugin, right? But yeah, the product marketing one is probably second. And then third, I think it might be like the social content skill, because again, a lot of people think about social media automation. They don't really want to do it. How do I get AI to just make the content and schedule it and publish it for me? So I'm not sure it's related to like what people are wanting to automate though. I think it's more about like probably what they think AI can help them the most with, and or what they just do day to day the most as a part of their job.
That makes sense. And I think you once tweeted that most AI CMOs product are a scam and people underestimate and overestimate what AI can do. And I absolutely agree with you. I mean, someone would get your repo that's outsourced and package it in a fancy way and sell it as an AI CMO. So I wonder from your POV, what makes you say that AI CMOs are a scam?
Well, I have a horse in this race, right? So just full disclosure is like I have this tool I'm building called Magister. It is sort of this like AI CMO in a box. And so like, of course, I'm going to be very harsh and critical of other people claiming to do the same thing. But I also created it for that reason because I was just very disappointed with what people were doing out there. This is not just even isolated to this AI CMO category of software coming out. I think it's pretty ubiquitous across software in general that a big problem arises when people without subject matter expertise try to build a tool in a space that requires a lot of subject matter expertise. And so again, this doesn't even just apply to marketing, but this could be like, I'm a YC company and my cousin works in plumbing. And so I'm going to make a plumbing software automation tool. And they're like, okay, well, like, what do you know about the plumbing world? You don't know anything about it. So for marketing, I feel like the problem that I see is just that people are building AI CMOs according to what they think marketing is and what a CMO does, which is not at all what a CMO does or really what people should be doing in marketing. Like literally, I'm not going to name names, but there was one of the first ones that was like, oh, it's an AI CMO. And all it did was find Reddit posts for you to comment in. I'm like, do you really think that that's what a CMO is spending their day on? Like that's just one tiny little fragment of something. It's also very, very niche. Like not every company needs to be posting on Reddit.
It's also one script.
And so, right. And it's one script. It's a very simple thing. And then I see, oh, it's an AI CMO. And like all it does is help you manage paid ads or helps you make ads. I'm like, well, that's one part of it. But I feel like if you're going to claim to be an AI CMO, you need to be pretty exhaustive and comprehensive. And you need to be this like horizontal layer that can tackle anything that a marketer does day to day. I tell people this all the time. Like most people conflate marketing with social media and with, ads like commercials or billboards or things like that. And I'm like, look, you don't understand, like modern digital marketing is like 20 things. It's way more broad and there's a wider range of things that you do compared to most other work facets, sales, engineering, design, support, customer success, finance. Like those are pretty, there's maybe like 4, 5, 6 parts of their job. Marketing is really, really broad. And so again, if you're going to claim to be an AI CMO, you need to have a really, really broad scope. So that's what we're trying to do at Magister is like, look, this is the orchestration layer, if you want to think about it that way, but it has all the marketing tools, it has a dedicated server, it has all the integrations, connections that you need to do any part of marketing that you need. We provide things out of the box. And then ultimately we're looking to do everything from like reporting and analytics to like the strategic side of like, here's how you can manage a whole channel, and then super, super tactical down to like, we're going to help you write copy, make an ad, write an email, so on and so forth, like very granular things too. But yeah, ultimately, I just don't think that a lot of people know what marketers do day to day, and then they build products that don't match that. But it looks flashy, and so it gets a lot of attention.
It's not that you build it and they will come. They realize that they need someone to bring in demand or revenue, and then they search for marketer. But who is that marketer? Not clear. Marketer equals more money. Mm-hmm. And then it's, then it's whatever comes. But you're doing a lot of things. The newsletter, Conversion Factory, Magister, a lot of things. I am 100% sure you're like optimized and agentified to the max. So I'm curious to know a bit more about your tool stack. You mentioned Cursor that you used back in the day. Maybe now it evolved a bit, or are you using Claude Code natively as a desktop app or RMS agent, or how does it look like? And I also would be curious to know about your memory setup and if you use Obsidian and all of these things. I think there's so much hype about Obsidian, but essentially it's a notes app with just structured notes. So I don't really get the hype, but curious to get your take.
Caveat here is that I'm figuring everything out for the first time. And so this could be completely different in 6 months. We'll see. But today, my setup is, it's funny. I kind of have like 2 daily drivers for managing AI agents. One is a tool called soloterm.com, made by one of my friends, Aaron Francis. And It's essentially a terminal client, but it's structured in a way where like it's project based. And so you can have these like nested folders with several agents within one folder, all sharing the same context, all predetermined. And the great part about it is that, for example, when you ask Claude Code, like, hey, spin up a local dev server for me, it might do that in the background as like a background shell job. And then that's great because it can like see it and manage it. And if it crashes, it can restart it, whatever. But it doesn't give you a lot of the transparency that you need. And also it can be hard to control and hard to debug when something goes wrong. So what Solo does is instead it has a different place for managing all of the commands and processes that you need to run to build your apps or to run your workflows. And Solo becomes like the bridge between the AI agent and all of those commands and processes. So Solo has an API and MCP, and you can say, hey, use Solo to spin up a local host. And now in a separate place, a separate terminal, it's going to spin that up for you and it can change things and whatever. So I love Solo because I have a bazillion different projects and I have like 30 tabs open at any given time. And that way I can just like pop between them and it gives me notifications. I can restart dev processes if I need to. And it's just a very clean way of like when I need to keep going back to the well and keep working on things, I don't want to have to think about how to organize everything and name all my tabs and whatever. Like it just does all that for me. Now I also use Warp because I like that Warp is not project based. And so when I don't know what I'm going to be working on or when I'm working like a new project, I open up Warp because it's really easy to create folders on my computer, just explore something. Like if I'm making a new skill, I don't have the skill file for it, so I can't open that in Solo. And so I'm just going to open up Warp, spin up Claude Code, and then start jamming on stuff. And also has a really good like markdown file editor and a couple other things that just make it like a very flexible kind of all-in-one tool for that. I'm not really using OpenClaw, Hermes, any of those a ton. I have a couple of them installed in some apps and I'll use them like in Slack to answer questions and hook up things. But I feel like, again, it's not like embedded into my workflow of working out of the terminal on Claude Code, which is what I do all day long. And so I feel like I'm missing a little bit of the transparency that I want. And by the way, that's another thing that we're looking to bring in Magister is that Magister has its own web UI, but then it also has an MCP and CLI. So you can use it in the terminal, not just in the browser. So Solo and Warp, and then I am using Obsidian, and this is a little bit of a newer thing. But what I realized was that, again, like you're saying, for memory, the best memory is just files on your computer or files stored somewhere that the AI can access. And so the thing that Obsidian has been doing forever, better than any other app, is that it saves all the files in Markdown, which also happens to be the file format that AI likes to work with the best because it's super, super small file sizes, very easy to create these structured, formatted documents. And so Obsidian just has become like the place where I dump everything in there. Like I literally have a folder called raw. And so I can give it transcripts, I can give it tweets, I can give it YouTube videos, I can give it anything and say like, process this, save it. And then later on, when I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about doing X, Y, and Z, it can now go look through my Obsidian and find anything related to what I'm talking about and kind of bring that back up to the surface. So that's been really, really useful as like long-term storage. It really is the like second brain promise that I think everyone's been trying to get to forever, where it's like, it's just, a couple clicks away is like everything that you want to, have saved. But now it's useful for AI. So I don't have to do that work. And that's really it. Like, obviously I'm connecting a lot of tools to Claude Code, but as far as like my daily drivers, those are probably like the three that I'm in and out of the most every day.
Interesting, because I also use Warp, but I use Factory AI because I can connect other models to it, not just Claude Code. Right now the models like Kimi, Quen, and Minimax, like benchmark is for simple tasks is, they're there with like Opus 4.7, if not Opus 4.8 already. And I don't want to max out my Claude tokens so much. I only use Opus for deep thinking and planning, but the rest of the things, Minimax, it's just my daily driver for the
See,
AI.
I'm spoiled because I've had the Max subscription forever. And so I never really thought about it too much, but eventually that day will come.
I really like your approach with being a GTM engineer and also building the products and basically dogfooding what you're doing, engineering demand for your own product. I know that you haven't publicly spoken about what are the SaaS tools that you're deploying, because I know that at least a couple of them are quite successful in terms of MRR. And I wonder if there are any workflows that you've built that you swear by that allow you to keep growing that MRR, being, a founder of so many things and managing all of these workflows.
I'm always dog fooding. Like I've been using Marketing Skills in Claude Code for everything. And that's been like my primary way of dog fooding, drinking my own champagne, however you want to call it. And now I'm trying to that's great. And it's awesome. And I still think it's going to be like 90% of my workflow. Problem though, is that because I have so many products and projects going simultaneously, I'm constantly babysitting and I want to have just enough gatekeeping and like toll gates for me to be able to prevent anything from happening that I wouldn't want to happen. And so, there's certain things that it needs to ask for approval for example, and that's been great, but it's not as proactive and autonomous as you want an agent to be. And that's where Magister comes in. And so now I'm trying to shift a lot of my workflows over to Magister because Magister is completely autonomous and proactive. And it's this sandboxed, safe environment for me to do all these crazy things. And it's just a better UI for it as well. Like the terminal really is not a great UI. And this is what I always tell people, like when I'm trying to get them to use Claude Code in the terminal, not just in the desktop app or something else. Like, look, you have to understand there's trade-offs here. It's kind of like a curmudgeonly, cranky old man that likes things to be done a very, very specific way and that gets angry when you don't. But it's super, super powerful. And like you're going to be able to do things way, way faster, way better than you're going to be able to in any other environment. So that trade-off has always been worth it to me. Now I'm feeling like the trade-off of like the interface of the terminal is feeling less worth it compared to the UI of something that is completely autonomous and actually a much better working environment for the things that I need to do when I'm like giving it approval or fleshing out a plan or looking through analytics, for example. And so that's where like Magister now is coming in, where I'm shifting a lot of this process over here because, for example, this last week I've been working on getting Magister to manage the Google ads for one of my more successful SaaS products called TrueList. And previously doing that in Claude Code, like I have to prompt it every single time I want like a report or an analytics dump of some kind. How's it doing? Okay, maybe we should make these changes. The formatting is kind of weird, so I can't like copy and paste things over. It's going to be doing things via the API, but again, what it's telling me is not going to be a great view and glimpse into what it's actually doing. Whereas now in Magister, I have daily reports and briefs, literally emails that are sent over to me. I have dashboards and analytics, whole like analytics setup that are being updated constantly with real-time data. I can have multiple chats going about it and make changes simultaneously versus like having one siloed chat to do it. So that's an example of like why I'm trying to move that workflow over. And I think also, again, once we have the Magister, MCP, and CLI, then I'll have the best of both worlds as well, because I'll have like the full power and flexibility and control of doing things in the terminal. But then also when I need it, the UI and the analytics and the proactive kind of agentic background things that are happening within Magister. And that to me is like the kind of fulfillment of the vision of like what it's going to be like to work within AI. Is I don't need to sit there and babysit it, but it's also like not just doing things and like it's magically happening, but I don't really even know what it's doing. Like you need to have good checks and balances, good reports, good change logs, good history, and like paper trails of what the AI is doing. I don't see that happening outside of something like, a Magister. Like Claude Code is just not going to be able to give you that level of detail and transparency into all the things that it's doing for you.
If you have all of this data for like Meta ads, Google ads, what are the ways that I can continuously adapt and change my strategy to get more of that success? And I think that has been a challenge, especially if Claude Code is the only thing that you're working with, because Claude Code doesn't really have cron jobs, doesn't have all of these functions that just work on the background and cannot self-evaluate. And I think with something like ads, where it's purely like database, this data is what informs those decisions essentially, right? So you should be able to make this proactive decision. So that sounds like something, especially with the Google ads, that you were able to crack.
Yeah, but really, I mean, this is one of the advantages of marketing is that most things are pretty data driven. And so you can take things like content and SEO, same exact thing. Hey, how are our rankings doing? All these changes that I just made, what of our impressions and clicks look like in Google Search Console now? Social media, hey, we experimented with these different types of formats of social posts. How did they do? What were what was the analytics? What was the engagement look like? Okay, let's use that. to then do our next batch of social content. You can really like go down the line on most marketing things, and there's some kind of feedback loop involving data and analytics that if you can pipe that into AI, now it has so much richer context to be able to do better work for you.
I come from the social world, so for me, data is really important, but also getting the global context is very important. Whatever happens, I work mostly with fintech, right? So whatever happens to the market, this is going to affect a lot of how my content is performing, how my clients' content is performing. So if I only look at this siloed like approach of, okay, this is what my post yielded this month, that is only one part of the story, right? So I think as a marketer also, it's very important to be able to get all of the sources and really piece the puzzles together. I think AI is really good at processing all of these large amounts of data and giving you an idea of what could have happened, which is amazing, but it's still not there. And what brings me to my next question is, you also shared that craft and taste is not something that has gotten cheaper or will in the near future. Some people would argue that you can teach taste to AI. I mean, same as the people, right? I'm kind of on the fence with that argument because I think some things you just feel, but I also work in this field, so I'm biased. I'm curious to hear your opinion on where do you think we are at with this taste making?
We're kind of in an annoying spot right now where it's gotten good enough to where now everyone thinks that they're a genius, but it's still not great enough to where like the people who are top of their field are like, oh, this is just as good as something that I would make by myself or with maybe like AI assisted, but not completely AI. Here's the thing though, is that the writing is on the wall. Like eventually, yes, AI is going to be just as good as any senior designer, any senior copywriter. It's going to be doing things at the same level. I've watched this happen over the last 4 years, right? Where it's like, AI is good, but you have to prompt it a certain way to get a better output. And then it was like the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And people are sort of like in disbelief that AI is going to be able to get to a certain spot. And then every 6 months, the goalpost changes, but they just keep like moving the goalpost to higher and higher quality things. And then I'll realize that like, okay, the trajectory of AI is that eventually it will do all the things that you're saying that it can't do. I saw this. I think one of the better examples of this is with images and video where, early on, maybe even just like 2 years ago, people were like, oh no, it's never going to be able to make, Marvel movie level graphics and video. And then now we see it. So it's like, okay, well, I'm sure that AI is going to be able to solve things like web design, for example. I hate to say it, but it's just going to. We saw it with the Anthropic front end design skill that everyone started using. It was like, oh, this is much better design than we've ever had with AI. It's still not like, A plus level, but it's like B to B plus level. And again, for anyone who was like a C before, now they think that they're amazing because now they're making B plus level things. It's still not A or A plus, but eventually it will be. Probably in the next 6 months is my guess. And so do I think that we still need to have taste? Yes, because I think that you need to have taste in order to recognize what great looks like, to recognize what an A or A plus looks like. And this is true for all things. Like I just did a woodworking class, for example. I'm trying to become more handy. I want to do things that are more like hands-on, analog, push my brain in different ways than just being on a computer all day long. And so I made this like stupid 3-legged stool that's completely useless to me. But now I have a completely new perspective and appreciation for anything made out of wood, any piece of furniture. I'm like, wow, that was probably so hard to make. And now I can tell the difference between was this handmade or was this manufactured? What kind of wood is it? How is it? How are the pieces joined together? Is it glued? Is it screwed? Is it, were they using power tools? Were they using hand tools? So because I did it and because I'm like getting experience hands on myself, I am taste making for this thing, this whole field, which is woodworking in this example. So in the same way for marketing, for design, for engineering, the more that you can do hands on yourself, the better taste you're going to have to be able to push AI to the max and go beyond the B plus level outputs and get to A plus outputs consistently. And so I just don't see that like a lot of people are going to be able to get to that level because it's going to be so easy to not put in the time or effort to build your taste, so to speak.
Yeah.
And they're going to be happy and complacent with their B level web design. And that's okay. Like I can't really force them to do that. But I will say, yes, I think it's super, super important because there's no way you're going to be able to even know what A plus level web design looks like unless you build those skills. And we've seen this for a long time too, where we're just like, man, sometimes like we get a new client, for example, and it's no shade to them, but we look at their website and we'll ask them like, hey, so what do you think about your web design, your copywriting, da da da. They'll be like, yeah, I think it's pretty good. I'm not really looking to change that. I'm looking to do these other things. And we're like, I think you should look at changing it. I think it needs some work. It needs some updates. Like to them, they're like, this is A, but it's not A. It's a B or maybe even a C sometimes. And that's a problem.
Yeah, I think the biggest nightmare would be all of this C plus designs and marketing assets just flooding the feeds. And then people who actually want to learn it can't even distinguish between A and C. And so you have a bit of a controversial view about business podcasts. You just don't listen to any business related podcasts or news and things like that. So you kind of gatekeep your space like this, being, a business person, GTM engineer and SaaS builder. What is a better way to, learn about these things for marketers in the future and kind of gate themselves through from F to C tier marketing?
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I can speak for myself and just what I'm doing, which is that instead of being okay with being like spoon-fed information or spoon-fed what to think, what's good, what's bad, what's interesting, like really just trying to think for yourself and do the investigation yourself is the biggest part to going outside of. So, okay, well, maybe a little context. Like the reason why I don't really, it's not that I never, but I don't really listen to business podcasts anymore is because I feel like it's a lot of this like C to B level content that is kind of just a waste of time and even like drags me down a little bit, or then I'm like, trying to chase things that I shouldn't be chasing, or I'm just hearing the same things over and over again that I know is like not the best advice or not really true in a lot of senses. And I just don't need it. So for myself, what I'm trying to do is like, I try to find, the primary source of information, and then I go and do my own investigation, my own research, maybe ask them questions directly myself and like try to figure out what is working. I feel like if I was only listening to business podcasts and relying on that as my source of information of like what to do for AI and for marketing, I never would have made marketing skills. Like I was trying to figure out like, what are people doing? How are they using AI for marketing? And the conclusion that I came to was that they weren't. And so it was going to be up to me to figure this out. So then I just started experimenting and playing around and toying with stuff and seeing how far that I could push it. But yeah, I mean, I run across stuff all the time where I've come across an interesting business or content creator or this random little industry or niche over here. And then I'll just go down that rabbit hole and start poking around, asking questions, have Claude or ChatGPT do a deep research session on things, try to answer some questions, and then go back through, look at the feed of someone, see what they're posting about, what they're doing. And I'm just trying to think for myself, really is what it comes down to.
Yeah. I think the underlying thing here is being curious is the solution to this problem, because if you weren't inherently curious, you wouldn't be interested in going down the rabbit hole.
Be super, super curious and super, super resourceful. Just figure it out. See what you can find. I think that you would this goes even beyond like this whole marketing thing, but people are always surprised. I've just found like being resourceful and again, being curious, but you combine those two, but especially being resourceful gets you so much further than you think. If you just ask a question, if you just poke around, if you just see what's possible. For example, my fiance and I were trying to make an offer on this house. It's a really long story, but we ended up learning that the seller went into bankruptcy. And so our agent was like, look, this is a lost cause, da, 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 da. And I was like, bankruptcy. I know that like some criminal or court cases, like, you can look at the records publicly. It's, publicly available information. So I spin up Claude Code and I start asking it like, hey, here's the situation. Is there any way that I can get my hands on, what's happening with this bankruptcy case to see if maybe there's still a way to salvage this whole situation? And it was like, oh yeah, actually there's this website called like courtlistener.whatever. And you can either like upvote and ask for documents to be shared, or you can just buy them directly. And I was like, oh, well, obviously I'm just going to buy them directly. So I bought all of the documents for this bankruptcy case. Now I know everything. Now I'm ahead of my agent. I'm ahead of all the other people that I've been trying to correspond with, their broker. They're like, how did you know that information? I'm like, I just bought the document because You can, apparently. And like, that's just a little like weird niche example, but you can find that in a lot of things across building products, marketing, tech, whatever line of business you're in. If you just poke around, if you just ask questions, if you just don't box yourself into that's not possible, or this information isn't out there, or there's no way that I would know this or learn this, just see what you can figure out.
Awesome. And to wrap it up, I want to give the mic to you and share a bit more about what's next for you and where can people find you.
Yeah. So, I mean, the two things top of mind for me right now are getting Magister out the door. And so it's magistermarketing.com. We have a wait list still. We're doing rounds of beta invites pretty much like weekly at this point. And so I really think that like Magister is going to live up to the hype of AI CMO. So check it out. And then number two is that we've been doing a lot of AI training at Conversion Factory now. And so if you want to get 10x better at using Claude Code for marketing, or if you want to enable your team to go from 0 to Claude Code power user, then we can help with that. And we have some stuff on the website about it, but it's Conversion Factory.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining, Corey, and I'll see you online.
Yeah, thanks for having me.